This is a 1999 Bentley Mulliner Park Ward limousine, and it was the ultimate luxury car 20 years ago. I've reviewed a few limos lately, but they've all been conversions with aftermarket screens and colored LED lights and other luxury upgrades added by limo companies. Not this. This came straight from the factory, built by Bentley to be the most luxurious car in the world in 1999. And today, I'm going to review it. I've borrowed this Mulliner Park Ward from Checkered Flag International, which is an exotic and specialty car dealership here in Southern California in the Los Angeles area, whose car tastes seem to brilliantly align with my own. They have everything from old cool SUVs to Dodge Vipers to Porsches. You can check them out by clicking the link in the description below. But when I saw this Bentley, I knew I had to review it. Most limos you see are created by aftermarket limo conversion companies using relatively cheap stuff. They're designed for proms or bachelor parties or weddings or whatever. But not this one. This was specially ordered and made by Bentley in the factory, designed to chauffeur around the wealthiest people in the world from 20 years ago. And indeed, this car is really special. You see, back when this car was new, Rolls-Royce and Bentley were one company, and most people who ordered limos wanted the Rolls-Royce. In fact, this is the only factory Bentley limo from this era. This particular car is the only one they made. It's unique, one of one. Someone just really wanted their limo to say Bentley instead of Rolls-Royce. It was special ordered from the factory, it was delivered new to New York City, and it is glorious. And today, I'm going to review it. First, I'm going to take you on a tour of the Bentley limo, and I'm going to show you all of the interesting quirks and features of the most luxurious luxury car from 20 years ago. Then I'm going to get it out on the road and drive it, and then I'm going to give it a Doug score. All right, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the Bentley limo in the most important place, and that would be the rear. Now, when you walk up to the car, you can clearly see that it is longer than a traditional Bentley sedan, and that all of that extra length was added in the rear. You can see there's this little middle section that's just sort of an extension of a regular Bentley. The front door and the front of the car are exactly like a Bentley sedan from this era, but the back is longer for more luxury. And so we climb in. And so let's move into the back of this car and check out all of the luxury. Now it starts on the door sill. You open up the door and there's a badge that says Mulliner Park Ward. Now Mulliner and Park Ward were coach building companies that built customized luxury cars like 100 years ago. Eventually they were absorbed into Bentley and Rolls-Royce, and that became the name of the top end trim levels of some Bentley and Rolls-Royce models. To this day, Bentley still uses the brand name Mulliner to describe its luxury customization department, and they used it on this car too. But anyway, there are so many luxury features in the back of this car. I'm going to start on the door panel. You have this row of switches, all of which are interesting. Now the first one says division, and if you press that switch, a glass divider will rise up between the rear compartment and the front compartment so that the people in back can be physically separated from the help driving them around in front. Of course, if you press division the other way, the glass divider will automatically go down, and then you're sharing the same space with the driver and you can talk to them more easily, but you can take them away if you wish. And in fact, the divider between the front and rear seats gets even better than that. The next switch on the door panel is called blind. If you press that, an actual physical blind will go up so you can't even see the driver, let alone hear or talk to them. and that way they are completely out of sight and out of mind. Of course, once again, you press blind the other direction, the blind will automatically go down so you can see the driver, and from there you can decide whether you want to put up or down the glass between you. Now, as wonderful as it is for the wealthy people sitting in the back of this Bentley to be able to block themselves off from the driver so they can have an important secretive business discussion back here and the driver won't hear a thing, it also presents a problem, because then you can't tell the driver where to go, where to stop if you want to make a route change. But that's what the next items on these little switches on the door panel are for. The next piece is a button marked talk, and then you have a switch marked intercom. You turn on the intercom and that allows the driver to speak to you, but then if you want to reply or tell the driver something, you press talk and then you are speaking to the driver, and that way you can communicate with your driver even if the partition is in place. But you might be thinking, well, what if you accidentally turn on the intercom to talk to the driver and then forget to turn it off, and then you have some sort of very important discussion back here? Well, there's a little red light located above the partition that lets you know when the intercom is on. Intercom's on, red light's on, turn the intercom off, red light is off, and that way you won't accidentally forget and allow the driver to hear your conversations. And next up, the last little switch on that panel of switches on the door panel says moon, and no, even Bentley limo owners were not wealthy enough to turn on and off the moon. Instead, that opens up the moonroof. You press that and the sunroof back here will open up, and then you have direct access to the sky. The important thing about this is there is no sunroof in the front of this car, only a sunroof for the rear passengers, because they're the ones who matter in this limo. And next up, below that switch panel in the door, the next interesting item is another switch panel in the door with 4 switches on it. The first one I'm going to talk about says seat. You press that, and then the seat back here will recline. So if you want to spread out, relax while you're being whisked around in your Bentley limo, just press that button and the seat will go into place. And next up, the next interesting item in this switch panel area is marked heater. That turns on the heated seat. A heated rear seat was a really big concept back in 1999. Nothing had it, but this did. And finally, the last 2 switches in that little switch panel are lumbar support, and in the Bentley limo, you can adjust upper and lower lumbar support to make sure the seat gets to absolutely the perfect amount of support for your back. Very important. And next up, another item worth noting in the door panel is this cup holder. This plastic fold-down cup holder is aftermarket. Bentley did not stick this in the original Bentley limo. You can tell it's not as nice as everything else, but some later owner must have added it so they could get larger drinks back here. This car does have quite a few rear cup holders, but they're not very large. The most prominent of them are actually mounted on the partition. You can see they're designed to hold these like champagne glasses, which isn't a very practical drink holder for most types of drinks. By the way, you will notice that this cup holder is like this little aluminum ring with the Bentley B on it. Very classy and luxurious, the kind of thing you do not get in an aftermarket limo conversion. And next up, since we're in the vicinity of that cup holder, how about a little lower? You have a little compartment, you open it up, and that's a refrigerator. So if you want to store drinks or champagne bottles is the initial intent, you can stick them in your Bentley refrigerator and they'll be chilled while you're being chauffeured around. Pretty nice. And by the way, one other interesting thing about this refrigerator, because of where the refrigerator is placed, you'll see the door opens up onto this piece of trim, but there is a little black like rubber thing there designed to protect the trim, which is a nice example of attention to detail from Bentley when creating this limo. And since we're in the vicinity of that trim in the refrigerator, we have to talk about the extra rear seats. Now, this car is stretched, but not so much that you can get like many people back here. This isn't like a bachelorette party limo. Instead, it's designed to be transporting basically 1 or 2 really rich people who can stretch out. But there are extra seats you can use in a pinch. They're these little jump seats, rear facing. You press a little button on the side of them and then the seat pops down and someone can sit there if they need to. But as you look at this rear seat, you're probably thinking, that doesn't really look all that comfortable. And indeed, it isn't very comfortable. But one of the main reasons for that is that a cushion is missing. The cushions are actually stored in this bag in the trunk. You open the bag and then you can see that's where the cushion is. You can take the cushion and then place it in the seat, and that makes it more comfortable. The reason the cushion isn't in the seat is because when it folds into place, the cushion can't be there or else it won't close. So that helps make it a bit more comfortable. But really, those seats are not designed to be used frequently, only in a pinch if you absolutely have to carry additional passengers back here. You have nowhere else to put them, you can drop one of those jump seats. And for further proof of this, check out the seat belts. You have the buckle just kind of sticking up off the floor, and then the actual latch part is clipped into the side, this little trim piece in the middle. Not really designed to look the best or intended for frequent use, but they're there for when they need to be used. And by the way, one other benefit of these seats, when they're folded into the up position, you can see they have a little cargo compartment on them, so you can stick stuff in there, important business papers, while you're being chauffeured around. And next up, we move on to some other interesting quirks and features back here. I want to start with the footrest. That's the thing on the carpet here. You can just pick it up and move it to be placed precisely where your feet need rest. And you can see that the color of this footrest perfectly matches the rear carpet and the rear leather, blue with this kind of cream piping, so that it fits right in. And speaking of the carpeting, let's discuss that for a second, because it is pretty impressive in itself. You have carpeting in this car, just like in most cars, and it's blue with white piping. But on top of this carpeting, you have this nice thick rear floor mat that covers the entire rear carpeted area, and it's so fluffy and so luxurious. The intent is that you can take your shoes off and allow them to just lie on your fluffy rear carpeting, which is mounted on top of your less fluffy rear carpeting. And next up, we move on to the center area in between the two rear jump seats, where there are a few items worth noting. First off, you lift up this lid on top and it reveals a compartment that contains a stereo head unit. You can see there's a cassette player, a radio in there. There's also a stereo head unit below this compartment. I guess this is a more modern one, so you can choose from all different types of music source while you're riding around in the back of your Bentley. But that stuff isn't very interesting. Far more exciting is below that, where you have a television. This is some old AudioVox TV. It looks terribly 90s, and it does not work, which is a shame, or perhaps not really a shame, because it's absurd. But if you really wanted a TV in your chauffeur-driven car, Bentley would do it for you. Now, below this TV, you have a VCR, or VHS player, and again, doesn't seem to work, doesn't turn on, but if you have a VHS tape and the desire, you could probably find someone to get your TV VCR working again in the back of your Bentley limousine. And next up, we move on to some more interesting quirks and features back here, and I'm gonna move on to this seat, which is interesting because the door panel on this side has even more controls than on the other side, and that's because you have the climate controls over here. You can see there are 4 dials. Over on the left, you have the heat, you can turn it up or down. Then you have fan, you can turn it up or down. And then recirculating air, you can choose between cold or hot. And finally, up or down, which is the positioning of the air vents back here. So you have your own climate control zone in the back. Now, one interesting thing back here is where they hid the climate vents. I couldn't find them for the longest time, and then I finally discovered them on the sides of the partition. You can see there's a little opening on the left and on the right. That's where the climate control air blows from. They did a good job of making sure there weren't any ugly climate vents back here to ruin the atmosphere. And next up, some more interesting quirks and features in back. If you fold down the center armrest, you can see folds right down and becomes an armrest. And at the very front, there are cup holders. You can pop them open and put cups in there, although I guess not large enough cup holders for whoever installed the aftermarket cup holders on the door panel. It's worth noting you also have cup holders at the base of the seats, so you don't have to put down the armrest for the cup holders. Again, though, these are small, but if you add up all of the factory cup holders in the back of this Bentley, you have 6 total. So they figured people would be taking a lot of drinks back here. And next up, another interesting item. To the side of the seats by the headrest, you have a mirror. So if you're being whisked away to some important business meeting, you can look at yourself before you get there to make sure you look your best. There's also a little switch on the side of this mirror, and it controls two separate lights above the mirror. One is just a general interior dome light, and the other is your reading light. So if you want to sit back here and read a newspaper or a map or whatever, you can do that by pressing this switch. Mostly though, the thing I like the most about the back of this Bentley limo is that everything is factory, and so everything looks like it matches and looks like it belongs. You can see all of the wood trim matches throughout the entire rear compartment. All of the leather is the same color, the same material. There's no aftermarket additions, no cost cutting, no weird, cheap, tacky LED lighting. Everything back here is just how you would want, straight from the Bentley factory, with the optimum luxury available in 1999. And next up, we climb into the front of the Mulliner Park Ward, where there are a couple of interesting quirks and features, starting with the fact that it's blue, which may not seem all that weird because the exterior is blue, so the interior being blue is not that unusual, but in the back, it was like a cream white. So whoever ordered this car originally, I guess, wanted the chauffeur to sit in a different color than the chauffeured to make sure that division of wealth is very clear. But beyond that, there are some interesting quirks and features up here, although a lot of them are similar to other Rolls-Royce and Bentley models that I've covered from this era. I will link those videos in the description below, and in this video I'm just going to go over a few of the highlights. Now, one thing that isn't similar to those models are these three unlabeled switches in the center console. You can see it's not really clear what they do. Well, it turns out the one over on the left will turn on the dome lights, so if you press that, the dome lights in front come on. The switch on the right turns on the reading lights. That's the one aimed directly like into your lap, so if you have to read a map, you press that and that comes on. And the switch at the top is the most important. That's the one for the partition. If you press that, the partition will automatically lower itself, just like we saw in back. Same deal, if you press it up, then the partition will automatically go up. Again, just like we saw in back, so the driver has access to that partition control as well. And next up, we move on to probably my favorite quirk of Bentley and Rolls-Royce models from this era, and that would be the oil checker. Take a look at the fuel gauge and you can see it says EF half just like normal, but there's also a line in there that says min oil. Why would the fuel gauge have an oil line? Well, that's because if you press this little button in the center control stack, the car will give an oil level readout on the fuel gauge temporarily while you have the button pressed, and so you don't want it to go below the min oil line. So the fuel gauge also doubles as an oil gauge if you press that button in the center control stack. And next up, another notable item with this car is in the gauge cluster. In between the gauges, you have this weird, like, multicolored display. You're wondering, why does that look like a Christmas tree? And the answer is that's where all of your warning lights, your instrument panel lights, are located. They're all integrated in here. So check engine, but also your turn signals, your hazard lights. Basically every warning light is in this little strip, and that's why you need all those colors. And next up, another interesting thing about that colored center gauge cluster screen, while I was filming this video, I accidentally set off the alarm for this car. Now, I was able to turn off the alarm with the key, but the next time I started it up, that screen told me alarm occurred to let me know that previously the alarm went off. Just in case someone tries to steal your car, they get away, the alarm turns off, hours later you come back, you wouldn't know about it unless the screen told you. That's an interesting feature. And next up, another interesting item up here. The entire center control area is all wood, looks very beautiful, but some of these wood pieces actually conceal various items. For example, the top one, the radio, is underneath that. If you pop open the wood, you can adjust the radio. My favorite, though, is the ashtray. You push the Bentley logo, and then the ashtray pops out, a little hidden Easter egg for opening your ashtray so you can smoke as you drive along your chauffeured passengers. And next up, we move under the hood in the Mulliner Park Ward. And the first thing you'll notice under here is just how clean this engine bay is. It is unbelievable, considering this car is 20 years old, just how nice this looks. But I suppose that shouldn't be a surprise, because the original owner was probably obsessive about keeping this car in perfect shape, since he special ordered it to be the only Bentley limo from this era. One of one. Now you can also see under here, this car uses the Bentley 6 3/4 liter V8 that they all used from this era, a very famous Bentley powertrain. Looks very nice in the engine bay. And next up we move on to the trunk of the Mulliner Park Ward. My favorite quirk back here is that if you want to open up the trunk with a key, you walk up to the Bentley logo on back, you flip up the little B, and that's where the keyhole is, which is a nice little quirk. But if you open up the trunk, you will discover that there's not really anything particularly interesting back here. Looks like all the other Bentley trunks from this era. They didn't make any changes for the limo version, just your typical carpeting to match the interior and your nice cream white piping also to match the interior. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about with this car is the styling, because I really love how understated this car is. That's another big difference between a factory limo and an aftermarket limo, which often have crazy paint and chrome wheels and all this other stupid stuff. Not this thing. It was intended to look subtle but luxurious, and that's exactly what it does. Even this stretch is pretty understated. You wouldn't know unless you knew, although one element I do like, if you walk up to the glass piece in the stretch, you can see the Bentley logo embroidered into the leather partition. You can't see that if you're inside the car, only if you approach it from the outside. And so those are the quirks and features of the wonderfully quirky Bentley Park Ward Mulliner limousine. Now it's time to get it out on the road and drive it. All right, driving the Mulliner Park Ward limousine. It sounds so luxurious and so stately. And I have to admit, that's how you feel driving this thing, looking out over this big Rolls-Royce Bentley hood from this era. I can only imagine what this would have cost new. My guess is probably over $400,000 adjusted into today's money. I mean, imagine having a Phantom limo or a Bentley Mulsanne limo custom built for you. They only made maybe a few dozen of these from Rolls-Royce and just this one from Bentley. This car is very luxurious, and one interesting thing is you don't really feel the size all that much compared to a regular Bentley or Rolls from this era, which was already a very large car. You do feel in corners a little bit more body roll, but you were getting a lot of body roll anyway from a Rolls or Bentley at this time. Like in a lot of limos, because the partition is installed directly behind the front seats, there's a lot less room in the front seats than you might expect. So I'm kind of driving with my knees right up against the dashboard. The passenger seat's even harder. I climbed into it before to film, and you're really, really tight. I just figured it was up a little bit. I tried to push it back, it doesn't go back. But then again, the comfort of the front seat occupants was not really the purpose of this car. This car was all about how people felt sitting in the back. All right, I'm gonna give it a little gas here. Yeah, I mean, it's not really all that fast. That wasn't really the purpose of these cars, though. They were intended to be smooth and luxurious, and the transmission would shift in a very smooth manner. And it wasn't really supposed to be fast at all. But when it comes to the Mulliner Park Ward, the best place to be is definitely not the front. This is how you're supposed to enjoy this car, sitting in the back while someone else drives you around. That was, of course, the original intent of the first owner, and this really is the place to be. I have to say, sitting back here, incredibly luxurious, wonderfully cocooned, very quiet, and you just have so much room, so much space to spread out, even compared to a standard Bentley Rolls-Royce sedan from this era, which was a pretty luxurious and large car. But this is on a totally different level. You just put your feet on the footrest, you can feel the very thick, luxurious carpet, and it is oh so nice back here. You can clearly see why someone would have wanted this. And to be totally honest, if I had the money for a chauffeur, you could totally see how this life would start to get appealing. Ah, yes. That's better. And so that's the Bentley Park Ward Mulliner limousine. Factory limousines are really rare, and it's amazing to check this car out and see what Rolls-Royce and Bentley would have done for their wealthiest clients 20 years ago. This car gives us the chance to see how the top 1% of the top 1% would have lived in 1999. Anyway, now it's time to give this Bentley a Doug score.
Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the Bentley Limo is fine, not exactly a standout, and the extra stretch probably makes it a little less attractive than the regular Bentley sedans from this era, so it gets a 4 out of 10. Acceleration is leisurely and it gets a 1 out of 10. Handling is fine but very floaty and, well, it's a big car. It gets a 2 out of 10. Fun factor is low, especially if you're up front, and it gets a 4 out of 10. Cool factor is pretty high though. You won't see another one of these, especially from the factory, and it gets a 6 out of 10 for a total weekend score of 17 out of 50. Next up are the daily categories and features. It's very well equipped for 1999, but by modern standards it lags behind and it gets a 4 out of 10. Comfort is superb, truly fantastic, and it gets a 10 out of 10. Quality is decent, it's a nice interior, but reliability is a fear and it gets a 6 out of 10. Practicality is okay. It's less practical than a normal Bentley sedan because of its size, but the extra seats make it a little more practical and they even out, so it gets a 5 out of 10. Value is average, it's rare, so it's pricey, and it gets a 5 out of 10 for a total daily score of 30 out of 50. Added up, and the Doug score is 47 out of 100, which places it here against other luxury sedans from this era. It finishes a point behind the Bentley Turbo R, which is more engaging to drive, but otherwise the Bentley Limo fits in nicely in this group of aging ultra-luxury cars.